The next pattern I want to do is one called a Turbo Wasp, and I really should say a little bit about this. I know you all think I'm lying when I tell you about the numbers of fish or the size of the fish that are caught on terrestrial patterns, but I think most people that fish terrestrials will find out sooner or later that they really will catch more and larger fish with these patterns. The first time we ever fished this pattern was on Virginia's Smith River on a September afternoon. In a short space of time, I took over 20 nice browns on this pattern. At one point, I tried it out west, of all places, on Henry's Fork. And, you know, this is the mecca for a lot of fishermen. This is the ultimate dry fly water, the huge spring creek. And for some reason, this pattern just killed them on Henry's Fork. I have no idea why. I cannot explain it. It's worked well on spring creeks. It's worked well in most situations where we've tried it. So again, this is just one of my favorite little patterns. It's called the Turbo Wasp. This is tied on a size 14 2X long dry fly hook. That's a Team Co number 5212. And I tie this pattern with a fluorescent yellow thread. This is a 6/0 fluorescent yellow thread. We just start out as usual by wrapping the hook shank with the thread all the way to the rear. The body of this fly is tied with a piece of the same 1/8 inch thick black closed cell foam that I've used on the previous two patterns. This, however, is cut almost square from that block of foam. If you cut that foam in just almost a square, you'll have it exactly right for this particular pattern. Now, unlike these other patterns, I'm going to tie this foam in right at the rear of the hook. You notice that I have moved this thread forward just a little bit, and that's where I'm going to tie the foam in. Just tie the front of the foam in, continue wrapping the thread back to the rear. Now I'm going to wind up with a little ball of foam in front, and I want to cover that foam completely with the thread. The underbody of this fly is going to be nothing but this fluorescent thread, so you want to really cover that black foam up as much as possible with the thread. I'm going to wind up with a little ball of fluorescent yellow at the rear, cover everything up nicely. Once I've got that done, I'm just going to wrap that thread forward to about 2/3 up the length of the hook shank. You want to leave plenty of room at the front to finish the head of this fly. Fold the foam over, don't stretch it, hold it in place with your thumb and forefinger, and tie it down. Once you've got it tied down, trim away the excess foam in the front, and continue wrapping that foam down. As I say, surprisingly, this foam will almost disappear. Don't try to trim it all out of the way. You don't need to do that. It'll just wrap right down. So there's our little body. I've got the foam tied in the front. Next step is to put the legs in. For the legs, you can use anything like moose mane, dyed black elk hair, or whatever you have that you think would work nicely for legs. I like the black color myself, and you don't need much of this. You're going to wind up with only 4 or 5 legs on either side of the fly. Cut a little piece of that black elk hair. Again, we're going to even the tips up in a hair stacker. Take your hair stacker, put the tips of the material in, tap it on the table a bit. That's going to even those tips up. Take it with the tips pointed in the direction in which you're going to tie the legs in. Remove the legs from the hair stacker. Now this has got some fairly long legs on it, so I want to extend these legs out well beyond the butt of the fly. They're extending out, I'd say at least 1/4 inch or more behind the body of the fly. You want some long trailing legs on this. Tie these legs in, a couple of loose wraps, and then you can tighten up as you move back toward the body, and trim the forward portion. Now I'm going to separate these legs, these little elk hair or deer hair or moose mane, or whatever you care to use, into 2 bunches on either side of the fly body. I'm going to do that little figure 8 wrap over and behind and up and behind. Hold my legs in position and tie them down. So now I've got 2 nice little bunches of legs trailing way behind that fly. If you get too much legging material in there, you can just go in and trim some out. It won't make a bit of difference. Trim the legs out if you think you've got too much in there. I'm going to bring my thread forward, cover up the butts of those deer hair, legs, elk hair, moose mane, whatever. For the wing, I use mallard flight feather. This is, of course, sprayed with some of that artist fixative, that stuff that they spray on charcoal pastel drawings. To make the wing, simply take your scissors or needle or what have you, separate out a piece of fiber. You can sort of judge the size of the wing according to the size of the fly. So we've separated out a few of these fibers, cut them. You notice how they stick together. That's due to that fixative that I spray on there. With any wing quill, remember to tie it in by the thin end. You don't want to tie the butt end in. It'll never work correctly if you do. Also, remember to tie it in with the shiny side down. If you notice, one side of this flight feather is real shiny, the other is dull. You want to tie it in with dull side up, and the thin part of the quill is what you're going to tie down. Just lay that right over the fly, hold it in place with your thumb, give it a couple of turns. That's all you need to do. Then we're going to trim that wing so that it's a little bit longer than the fly. And if you want to, you can come in with your scissors, kind of cut that to a point. Just round the edges if you want to, or cut it to a point if you want to. It's not going to make much difference. Then trim away all this excess quill material in the front. Slide your scissors up in there, trim this stuff off. All right. Once we do that, kind of grab the fly and tie the rest of that quill material down. Bring your thread back up to where you tied the wing in. Now I'm going to put a little black dubbing on here. Don't need a tremendous amount. This is pretty fine black dubbing. We'll use a little bit of this. You get a little bit more here. That's not quite enough. The finer the better. We'll just attach that dubbing to the tying thread. Just kind of roll it onto the thread with your fingers. This fine dubbing, you really don't need to use any dubbing wax or anything. It'll just attach to the thread very nicely. Then I'm going to dub a little black head on this fly with that dubbing. And when I get through with that, I'm just going to bring this thread right on up and finish the head of the fly with it. Kind of pull your wings back up, get everything in position, and we'll whip finish the head. And there you have the Turbo Wasp. Just a real simple pattern to do, and it's been an excellent producer for my buddies and myself. As I say, for some unknown reason, this fly on Henry's Fork has continued to be a top producer every time I've been out there to fish it. I like this pattern very much. I think you will too if you learn to tie it and if you fish it.